What's going on, everybody? Today I'm going to be comparing the New Balance 1080 V14 to the New Balance More V5. Let's get right into it. So as always, we are going to start out with the outsoles of both of these shoes. Now this is the New Balance 1080 V14's outsole, and this is the outsole of the New Balance More V5. Now, if you look at the two together, you would see that for the most part, they look pretty much the same. And I can confirm that from the feel and touch of these outsoles, very scientific, they feel very similar, if not they're the same. I'm not exactly sure what rubber compound New Balance is using for both of these outsoles, but just from an eyeball guess and just touching both of them, I feel like they are pretty much the same outsole. So what does that mean? That means that the performance from a traction point of view, at least from what I've experienced in dry weather conditions on the road, they perform exactly the same. They do perform very well. I didn't feel any slippage in both of these shoes while I was running, so that's always a good sign. So I would say that the outsole traction performance was around the same for both of these. As for durability, I do have a little bit more mileage in the New Balance More V5, as it was one of my favorite shoes of 2024. I'm, maybe waiting for a couple more shoes to release before I announce my shoe of the year, if I even release that or announce that. But yeah, the outsole on the New Balance More V5 has a little bit more wear, and I can definitely see that the etchings on the rubber are starting to wear down a little bit. I think I have around 50 to 60 miles, if not more. I have to double check on this shoe, and it's holding up pretty well, I would say, from an outsole point of view. I don't see any of the midsole peeking out yet, so that's always a good sign. And as for the 1080 V14, this one I don't have as many miles on the shoe. I would say around 25 to 30 now, and the outsole looks pretty much, actually not pretty much brand new, but it looks pretty new. So definitely the outsole durability for both of these is decent. I would say around average compared to other daily trainers on the market. And comparing the two, I would say the outsole, since they're probably made out of the same rubber, it's gonna be around the same durability. Now, the reason why I wanted to make this comparison video was for the next aspect that we're gonna compare, which is the midsole or the cushioning. Now, the New Balance 1080 V14 has Fresh Foam X full length, and so does the New Balance More V5. So what is the difference between the two? It's gonna be the stack height and the heel to toe drop. So the New Balance 1080 V14 has a stack height of 38 millimeters in the heel, dropping to 32 millimeters in the forefoot, whereas the New Balance More V5 has 44 millimeters in the heel, dropping to 40 millimeters in the forefoot. Now, that gives this a 6 millimeter heel to toe drop, and this a 4 millimeter heel to toe drop, and this with an extra 6 millimeters of stack in the heel. So long story short, how did the two perform? So if you watched my recent review of the 1080 V14, you could kind of see that I was not as happy with the performance of the 1080 V14 from a versatility point of view, from just a slow runs to walking, recovery runs type shoe. This is a very comfortable shoe, don't get me wrong, but it felt a little bit lackluster when it came to the longer runs or came to picking up the pace or any other type of run. I felt that this shoe felt a little bit short just for me personally as a bigger runner. I am 195 pounds. I just felt that there was a little bit too much ground feel in the forefoot and not enough cushion or bounce in the forefoot for my liking. As for the heels performance, it felt really good. I didn't have any complaints about the heel cushioning of the 1080 V14. Now, when we talk about the More V5, this shoe was one of my favorites for a reason. I just felt that the Fresh Foam X felt really good under my foot, and I think that due to the extra stack height of Fresh Foam X in the forefoot, I did feel that my foot got closer to the ground on longer runs or on faster runs, but since there was so much foam and since it is a softer foam, it compressed, but there still felt like there was padding in between my forefoot and the ground. So for that reason alone, I think that for me, it just performed a little bit better in all types of runs. Like I was actually able to run a little bit faster, I was able to pick up the pace, as well as I was able to bring the More V5 on longer runs. Versus the 1080 V14, I just felt that the forefoot was a little bit lacking. Now I do want to touch on the rockers on both of the shoes. The 1080 V14 has a pretty subtle rocker, and I would say the More V5 has a little subtle slash a little bit maybe more aggressive rocker than the 1080 V14 because this is a higher stack shoe. I think that's kind of the trend that I'm seeing with higher stack shoes is that they give a little bit more of an aggressive rocker so it doesn't feel too lethargic or slow. It's to help you kind of roll forward and make the transitions a little bit smoother. So I would say that the rocker on the More V5 is a little bit more aggressive, but it's not really too big of a deal if you're comparing the two. And another thing I want to touch upon, last but not least, is the stability of both of these midsoles. I did feel that the More V5 was a little bit more stable. Now that does seem a little crazy because it does have a higher stack than the 1080 V14, but the reason for that being is that the width of the platform is a lot wider in the More V5 than the 1080 V14. So that's the reason why I felt a little bit more stable in the More V5. And I wasn't really afraid if I overpronated a little bit during the ends of my longer runs or just if I wasn't really paying attention to my running form. And I just felt that the More V5 supported me a touch better than the 1080 V14. I personally preferred the More V5 overall for a cushion point of view, just because it added a little bit more versatility, having that extra forefoot stack in the forefoot. And as a bigger runner, I do prefer not to feel too much ground feel, especially during longer runs and also during my faster runs. I just felt that I compressed the foam too much in the 1080 V14 and I was feeling the ground a little bit more than I'd like. And last but not least, we are gonna be comparing the uppers of both of these shoes. And these uppers, I'm gonna be 100% honest, are basically the same. I would say that the thickness of the material, the softness of the material, the same gusseted tongue, as well as the ribbed or perforated heel counters and ankle collars, they just provide a phenomenal fit, as well as they both fit true to size. They're a little bit more on the snug end, which I personally like. It feels like a nice hug. They both just lack a little bit of ventilation, but the fit, honestly, for both of these shoes was damn near perfect. The only thing that they could have improved on was maybe thinning out the material a little bit so that there would be a little bit more breathability and maybe it would lighten the shoes a little bit. But overall, the uppers on both of these were phenomenal. I do want to note though, in the 1080 V14, there was a little bit of a break-in period because I believe the base isn't as wide as the More V5. And since I have a wider foot, my midfoot actually hurt a little bit in the 1080 V14 while I was breaking it in. But after I broke it in, the pain started to go away. I also loosened up my laces a little bit and that problem was gone. So if you do have a wider than average foot like I do, you might prefer the More V5's fit. I didn't have any pain in the More V5. I still felt snug and secure and I just loved the fit. So overall, I just had no problems with the More V5, whereas the 1080 V14, I did feel a little bit of a need to break the shoe in. So my overall conclusion, and typically with my comparison videos, I don't pick a winner, but for me personally, I just love the More V5, and I think that it is a better shoe than the 1080 V14, and we didn't even talk about price yet. So as for pricing, the More V5 is priced at $155, and the 1080 V14 is priced at $165. That's another thing that I wanted to point out with these two shoes is that they're basically the same shoe, except the More V5 has more foam, a wider base, yet it's $10 cheaper. So I'm a little bit confused on what the thought process was for New Balance making this shoe $10 more, even though it has technically less material and less foam. But my best guess is that a majority of people don't like maybe running in the max cushioned More V5, or maybe they feel like it's too much cushion. This is a more popular form factor where it looks more like a regular daily trainer, but with that super soft, super comfortable Fresh Foam X. So that's kind of my theory, that they're kind of catering to the majority and they're kind of upping the price a little bit with $165 for the 1080 V14. But if you're like me, maybe you're a bigger runner or you just prefer more foam underfoot and you want to use the shoe for long runs and maybe a little bit of faster paced runs. I'm not saying that you would want to do tempo work in the More V5. I just felt that the More V5 took care of me more, was a little bit more versatile, it was cheaper, and also it didn't have any problems with the fit as the break-in period for the 1080 V14 was a little bit painful for me. So overall, I just liked the More V5 a lot more than the 1080 V14. Just thought it brought a little bit more versatility, more foam. It was super comfortable. And in my experience, I just preferred this type of shoe over this type of shoe. So that's gonna pretty much wrap up my comparison between the two shoes. again, at the end of the day, it's up to you which one you prefer. As I've mentioned, the 1080 V14 maybe is gonna cater better to people that prefer a more traditional daily trainer stack height. They don't wanna be super high off the ground, and maybe they like a little bit more ground feel, but still want that soft underfoot feeling. Whereas the More V5 is maybe gonna cater to runners more like me that prefer a wider base, which is gonna be stable, a lot of foam, a soft underfoot feeling, and adds a little bit of versatility and fun to your run. So that's gonna pretty much wrap up my comparison. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.